welcome from my side. My name is Jannis Sofeld and I work as an education consultant at SAP. Those of you who have joined one or both of the sessions yesterday might know me already. For everyone else, so I see a list of participants here, but I'm very bad in remembering names, so not sure if any one of you joined the last sessions. So I'm based in Walldorf, Germany, work as an education consultant here. So my main tasks are delivering trainings, mostly instructor-led trainings, so in classroom, in our training centers here in Germany, sometimes also in other countries. And in the recent times, it's mostly virtual trainings because classroom trainings can't take place because of the COVID crisis. So I want to talk about the topic setting up a workflow project for SAP Workflow Management today. As I already mentioned, I did two sessions yesterday. Those were more general sessions about SAP Workflow Management, about what it is about, what services are included. And in this session, I want to go a bit deeper and show like how to start or how to get started. So let's go into the agenda. I will just give a rough overview again about the service itself, so workflow management, what it is, but only really a quick overview because that was done in the other session in a very broad overview. And then we already come to the account setup. So what's actually required for your business technology platform account? What can you do if you don't have an account? So you could use the trial service here or the trial offering. Then when we've done the setup, how can we get started using the services? So what are the, let's say, entry points here? That's on the one hand side, Fiori Launchpad, and on the other hand side, that's Business Application Studio, depending on your role in a workflow project. Then, we have a look at the Business Application Studio, like what steps do we need to take there to create a workflow project? And once that's done, how to build and deploy the workflow. So you have the project, how can you get the workflow running and make use of it? Then we have a short slot about setting up a live process. So a live process content, you might have heard. If not, that's pre-delivered content that you do not need to develop yourself, but you just use it as it comes and you can activate it. And we just have a look at it and what additional steps still might need to be taken in order to set up such a process. Then I will show you some useful resources to get started. So some tutorials and stuff like that. And in the end, we have a quick outlook what's to come in this workflow management area. So I will do a mix of slides and then also demos where I will show stuff. And in the end, I will show you where you can get started yourself with hands-on. So quick overview about SAP Workflow Management. So the SAP Workflow Management, it's a part of the so-called extension suite in the Business Technology Platform. And you might have heard about it. The Business Technology Platform basically is the former SAP Cloud Platform. We had just recently this large rebranding. But in general, if you have worked with the Cloud Platform before, everything stays the same. There's just some new things additionally coming into the platform. And then about the SAP Workflow Management, let me just quickly read out this phrase in the top. A cloud service offering to digitize workflows, automate business processes, manage decision logic, and gain end-to-end process visibility. So this sentence includes all of the capabilities and services that are included in SAP Workflow Management. And that's basically the so-called workflow service itself, which is responsible for execution of workflows, and so that the participants get their tasks in their inboxes and such things. So the actual execution of workflows, taking care of workflows. Then the business rules service, where you can define your own sets of rules and decisions that can be used within workflows or also within other applications. And then the process visibility service, which provides, as you can see here, end-to-end process visibility when you include processes here in that service. And for example, you can build dashboards for certain processes or workflows, and then on the dashboard have several KPIs that show you information about your running processes. Then the inbox application, that's mainly targeted at the end user who receives his or her tasks in the inbox and can execute them from there. And then you see tightly integrated with Intelligent Robotic Process Automation, RPA, and SAP Conversational AI. So these are adjacent services that don't belong to SAP Workflow Management, but they are digital process automation capabilities that you can integrate with SAP Workflow Management. And there's also a lot of work done to smoothen the integration with those services and also with other services. As you can also see on the next slide, I've also shown this one in the other sessions, just to give this big picture overview again here. So when we work in the workflow management, and you see here we still have the term cloud platform. Actually, it's BTP, Business Technology Platform now. So when we use SAP Workflow Management, we have these services, and they can be integrated with many other SAP services, whether them being inside of the Business Technology Platform, so that's the this large area here on the right, or whether those applications or services are outside of the Business Technology Platform, like cloud offerings or on-premise offerings of SAP. So basically, you can have your HANA Cloud, S/4HANA Cloud system, and then have a workflow, a cloud workflow, connecting that system with some other system, for example, SAP SuccessFactors, to have a workflow spanning across several systems. So that is a quick reminder about the general big picture. Also, this one here is sort of a reminder, like what are the different paradigms, how we could use the workflow management capabilities. So on the one hand side, we can just use these so-called live processes or live process content to to use this pre-packaged content, which is already developed mostly and just needs to be activated and is more or less ready to use. So that's more or less the equivalent to the standard workflows in the old on-premise world when you were working with the business workflow, SAP Business Workflow. But then on the other hand, if you need something specific or custom made, you go for the custom process, develop the process yourself, and sure. The advantage is it's custom made. Disadvantage, it's not ready to use until you have finished your project. We will have a look into both of these, let's say processes. On the one hand side, how can we build our own stuff? And on the other hand side, how can we activate the prepackaged stuff? Okay, so I mean, if you have worked on the business technology platform or former SAP Cloud Platform before, you know about accounts, hopefully about the concepts. So you have these global accounts, and inside of global accounts, you can have several sub accounts, and these sub accounts they equal, if you are in the Cloud Foundry space, to orgs, organizations, and then you can have spaces inside of these sub accounts. And inside of these spaces, you could have service instances of certain services, or you could deploy your applications. And we will have a quick look at that. So first of all, in general, what do we need? You could find out via the Discovery Center. I've written down the URL here. And there you can find out about many SAP services, also about SAP Workflow Management. So if we go there and search for SAP Workflow Management, we could find an overview of business technology platform services that are required and that are included here, and which you need to be able to use the service and to create your own workflows. So let's just go there and have a look. You should see my browser now with the Discovery Center, and I will enter Workflow Management here. And let's see. So now there's different missions, so-called missions. So missions, they can be executed in order to get certain, for example, processes or scenarios started. But then also you have these services here, and here we would find the workflow management. So let's have a look at that one. And then, small description about the service, some videos and screenshots here. We will see some of the stuff today and some additional information. And then what's important here, from my perspective at least, is this service plan section, because here you could find out what kind of services are actually required and included here. And we see included entitlements, workflow service, business rules service, and process visibility service. So if you subscribe to this SAP Workflow Management service, so it depends on what kind of account you have here, a Cloud Platform Enterprise Agreement or subscription. You can have a subscription to SAP Workflow Management, and that would include these services which are required to run this. And then there are other required services which are not included, but anyways you would need them. So that's the Cloud Foundry runtime. In general, you need it if you want to run applications on the business technology platform Cloud Foundry environment. Then there's the Cloud Portal service. So that one is required to be able to use Fiori Launchpad capabilities. We will also see that. And then there's the Business Application Studio. That one is required for actual development. You also can see it here: develop, debug, test, and deploy SAP business applications. But that's not only for workflow management, but also for all kinds of other applications. Also these other services, that's why they are not included here, because you would also probably need them for other areas where you want to develop something. Yeah, and as you can see here also, there's the trial tab, and basically it's the same. you don't see the Cloud Foundry runtime, but that's also included when you have a trial that you can use the runtime environment. And we will also see how you can set up such a trial account. And then related missions. So here we could find even some tutorial-like missions that you can click through and try something out. But we will not go for that. But just as one place there where you could also have a look at for additional content when you want to get started with something. So that's about the services that are required. On the next slide, I have just summed it all up. So basically, we need an account, enterprise account or trial account. We need several service subscriptions, Cloud Foundry Runtime, Portal Service, Business Application Studio, Workflow Management with the included Workflow Management services. And then here, use case dependent, you might even need additional services, but that always depends. So I will maybe come to these at a later point. It always depends what you want to do. So for example, document management service, if you want to have document attachments to your workflows or to your tasks in your workflows, then document management service would be required. If you don't need it, then you don't have to have it. Also, for example, SAP HANA Cloud, you would only need that if you maybe have some application running on the side to your workflow, and that application has to persist certain data that is used within the workflows. So then, or for your application scenario, so then you might use the or might need the HANA Cloud offering. As for HANA Cloud extensibility, if you want to integrate with an S/4HANA Cloud system, then you would need the service to easily connect. Just to show you, okay, these are the requirements here on the left-hand side, but then there might be additional requirements depending on the actual use case. Okay, so how to get a trial account? I will not do it, but I will at least show it. This page. Because I show everything with another account that I already have. But just to show you this URL, cockpit hanatrialondemand.com, and I can also put it in the chat maybe. And then here, enter your trial account, and you could get started then and have your own trial account. And with that, you can already try and do a lot. I just shared the link in the chat because that was the question. Yeah, so I will not do it here because when I go back to this tab, let me just refresh it. I do already have an account, or let's say I'm member of several accounts, and that looks like this. So here we have the SAP BTP Cockpit, former Cloud Platform Cockpit. And if I just click on Home here, I would see all the global accounts where so my user is a member. And then if you would have a trial, you would click on Trial Home here. So, and then you would just see your trial global account, basically. In my case, I have this one, or I will use this one. And then within a global account, you can have several sub-accounts. So here you see it. This global account has 27 sub-accounts within 5 regions. And let's just go to the sub-accounts. You see there are a lot of sub-accounts also used for other trainings. And I will show this one, CLD 500, because that's also related to the workflow management training that we are developing, and that's about to be released soon. Is there any, okay, I just see this in the chat. Is there any limitations in creating sub-accounts in trial global one? I'm not sure. I think you can only have one sub-account within the trial, but I'm not 100% sure here. Yeah, so here we have this sub-account here running on the AWS infrastructure layer in the Europe Frankfurt region. So now we would be in the sub-account here, and there we have a lot of different possibilities for configurations, and we will also see some of them now related to setting up the account for workflow management. So let's go back to the slides. So once you have your account, it's not enough, because you need to activate the services that you want to use. And there's different options. It also depends on the scenarios. But now in workflow management, there's two options, and that's the manual setup. So we have to do everything by hand on our own, a lot of work. Or the booster setup, which is quite convenient and very fast, because a lot of stuff setting up the account is done automatically. So how would we find the boosters? When we are within the global account level, there's the boosters tab on the left. And let me show it. And it's the same when you're logged in with a trial account. So you would go to this level here of your, let's say, global accounts. For within your trial account, you would not see that much, but at least you should see or have one sub account there. And then on the left-hand side, you see the boosters here. And depending on the scenarios, you see they're actually different. Where's my mouse? They are different. Sorry. Okay, now it's back. There are different sort of boosters you could use. And then let's just search here, workflow. And then you see here, extension suite digital process automation. There's the booster setup account for workflow management. And then you would just use this one, click on it. It tells us a little bit about the workflow management and what it looks like. So you could also have a look at this to see or to gain some additional information. We will find out about the components again. So you would see here the components, actually the ones that we saw before in the Discovery Center. And these will mostly be set up automatically by this booster. So the different services here, and also subscriptions. Subscriptions mean these are software as a service offerings where you have additional possibilities. We will see that. So with the workflow management and the business application studio, we get a pre-configured Fiori Launchpad when we have that subscription. And here we can use the development environment of Business Application Studio. So you would just say start and everything else happens. I will not do it because I already have it, but actually it would look like this on the next slide. So that screenshot is from another account. Actually, it's from one of the tutorials that I will also give you the links to. And you see there's like 5 steps happening, but each of these steps has actually a few sub-steps. So there's assigning service quotas. That means for the services that you want to use, the quota needs to be assigned to the sub-account in which you want to use these services. Subscribing to SaaS applications. So that's about this Fiori Launchpad for workflow management and the Business Application Studio. Creating service instances. That's Cloud Foundry specific, because in Cloud Foundry you have this concept of service instances, which you could say they serve as your doorstep or entry point to a particular service. So you would have one service instance for workflow service, one service instance for business rules service, one for process visibility service, and so on. And these service instances will be used when you actually make use or want to make use of these services. For example, when you have workflows running, they will use the service instance to communicate with the workflow service. Creating destinations. So we need destinations. That's also a concept here in the cloud platform, but in general also in, I think in web development, to have like, placeholders for different systems that we want to use, and have a URL there, and maybe also some authentication information, how to use the system that is defined in the destination. And then last but not least, we need some role collections for users in order to be able to use all of the services. So as I'm not using the booster, I will just show you all of these steps quickly in the actual account. So first one, assigning service quotas. Now here you see manually. So these are all things you would not have to do if you use the booster, but I think it's good to know what it is about and to see it, because otherwise the booster just does stuff that way you don't actually know what happened. And also, I think a few months ago, these boosters didn't even exist, so you actually really had to do it yourself. So let's have a look for the assignments. So we go here, again on the global account, and then here entitlements, sub-account assignments on the left-hand side. And then we search for the sub-account that we want to do the assignment for, CLD 500, go. And then you see all of the assignments that are already here. And we would use the configure entitlements button here to actually increase assignments or remove assignments here. So we could add service plans here, and then we would find everything that is enabled for our global account, and we could choose it here to do the quota assignment for a sub-account. Or if stuff is already there, you can remove it again. And now what's necessary here in our case, that's the workflow management service. It's the workflow service. It is the process visibility service, the portal, the business rules, and the Cloud Foundry runtime. And you see all of them are assigned and can be used. We also have some additional ones here, but we will come to that later because they will be used in a special scenario, like, for example, the HANA Cloud. So that's about these assignments. Then we need to subscribe to these SaaS applications, Workflow Management and Business Application Studio. So this is now done within the particular sub-account afterwards. So actually, we go into the sub-account CLD 500. And within that sub-account, you see on the left-hand side the so-called service marketplace. And then here you can find services and applications that you can activate. So we would just search for the business Application Studio, for example, you see it here. Click on it, and then we would need to activate it here or subscribe. We already did it. We can see it here. We have the active subscription. So basically, we don't need to do it anymore. And also from here, at a later point, we can find the actual link to the application. So from here, I would find out how can I access my personal business application studio. So you would find it here. Okay, then that's this one. Then we have the workflow management. And here it's the same. We have this application plan, SaaS application, and there we have the subscription that we can use. And here, go to application. We will see that at a later point. So what's happening next? Creating service instances. So for each of these services that we have assigned to our sub account now, we need to have a service instance in order to be able to use these services afterwards. And that, if we go back here, you find the instances and subscriptions here. And here we can find all of the service instances that we have in this sub account. So you see, we already have the workflow, workflow management, process visibility, business rules, service instances, and also some additional here for Portal, for HANA Cloud, and so on. And these are then, afterwards required for the workflow management to be able to run in that account. How would you create them if you have to do it manually? The booster just does it. If you do it manually, you can either do it from here by the UI, create, and then you choose one of the services that you have available for your account. For example, in our case, the workflow service. And then you can give some additional info here. You need the space where this will be used, and then you can give an instance name. So here, for example, like what we already have in our account here. I don't do it now because we already have it. If you click next, then there are also parameters. You would find about additional parameters that you can give using the documentation. But in general, it works without giving additional parameters. Just in some special cases, you need additional parameters. And then click create and the instance will be created. I will not do it here because we already have everything. Looking at the presentation, you will see here the next slide. There are actually two ways to create these service instances. If you have worked with the platform before, the Cloud Foundry platform, you might know it. Actually, Cloud Foundry, it's CLI based, so command line interface based. And there are several different commands that you can use to communicate with the Cloud Foundry environment. And there's a special command, cf create -service, to create a service instance for a particular service. So in the top, you see the actual syntax. So you have to give the service name, you have to give the service plan name, and then you have to give a name for the service instance that is being created. And then you could also optionally give additional parameters. So it would look like this in our case: cf create service, workflow, standard is the service plan, and my WF service is the instance name then. And there could be additional configuration in a JSON file. Yeah, if you really want to do it manually, or if you have to do it manually, you might need to know which service plans you need to use. Here, plan. You can find it in the documentation. Just a quick look at it. So that's the documentation in the help portal for SAP Workflow Management. And there you would find the service plans depending on what kind of account you have. So if you have a trial account, you will just have the service plan Lite. If you have an enterprise account as a customer, usually you would need these service plans here. And then there's a special case for internal accounts that's mostly SAP internally. You would use these service plans that you can see here down here. But yeah, for customers, mostly this would be the relevant information here. Okay, so service instances done. Destinations, another step that the booster does automatically. But destinations, anyways, it's good to know destinations in the business technology platform, because that's nothing that's specific to workflow management again, but you also need them for other applications that you develop or use. So the destinations, let's have a look. You again find them on your sub account level, connectivity, and then here destinations. So now here we will see a lot of destinations that are only related to workflow management actually, because in this account we mostly do workflow management and nothing else. So what do we have? We have, and what you definitely need, and what the booster also creates, it's the business rules destination, then a so-called workflow destination here, which is used internally to call the workflow services. Then API Business Hub destination for integrations to the API Business Hub. We will come to that also later. And yeah, then depending on the use case, you might need additional destinations. For example, here you see the BPM workflow runtime _ mail. It's a destination to be able to send mail from a workflow. So you could have mail tasks in a workflow, and these mail tasks, they need to have this destination in order to work. And then inside of the destination, you would see, okay, what's the account and the mail server that this mail is sent from then afterwards. So that has to be defined in the destination. Also, for example, for destination for business rules, you will give the actual URL for the rule runtime service that is required here, and then you need some information for authentication. So again, this is done automatically by the booster. If it's not done automatically, you would need to find out how to do it. You can, on the one hand side, find it out in the documentation. So here you would see also configure destinations, and there's at least some information about these destinations. And it's also explained like how to get client ID and client secret. You see here service key, copy it from the service key. So that means if you have your service instances, so the business rule service instance, I can just quickly show it. And for a service instance, here it's the business rules. You can have so-called service keys, and a service key would then include this client ID and client secret. So here you see different service keys, and then if I would show it, you would see the actual client ID and client secret that you would need in the destination. Okay, that's about the destinations. Then last but not least, role collections, because there are several roles that are required for the different services. So for example, here Business Application Studio roles, or also workflow management roles, and we need to assign them to users that are going to use these services. So in our case, that looks like this. Let's have a look. Role collections. So these role collections, they are predefined by the services. They contain several roles required, and then here you can assign these role collections to user groups or directly to users. And you see here we have user groups that are used within the course in the upcoming CLD 500 course. Let me just click on one of these role collections. Then we would also see we can add particular specific users here. For example, the Schofield user, which is my personal user in this case. So this user has these roles that are included in the role collection. And you already see the role collection, they have some sort of separation of concerns. So there's admin, business expert, developer, end user. And depending on the use case, you only need some of these role collections. Okay, so we went through all the steps that a booster would do automatically. So I hope that this at least clarified a few points if you have not seen it before, and helps to understand what is actually required within an account to be able to use certain services. Everything that we have seen just now, it's not specific to workflow management, but it's valid for the whole business technology platform. So also for other services, you need roles. Also for other services, you need destinations. Also for other services, you need the subscriptions and the service instances. So I hope also for other tasks, this might help. So now we have set up everything. Let's say we took the booster, then it was really quick and everything is there. We could try to start using the services. How to do it. And we've seen this before. We have now these software as a service applications, which are our main entry points at the beginning to work with these services. So on the one hand side, we have the Fiori Launchpad for workflow management, which is targeted at mostly all different kind of roles or users. So end users could use it, administrators could use it, business experts who are responsible for certain business processes or areas could use it, and also the developers might also want to use it. Then on the other hand, the Business Application Studio, it's mostly targeted at the developer. We will see both. Yeah, this is what the Fiori Launchpad looks like, the workflow management Fiori Launchpad, just without all the colors. So actually I added these colors to somehow show which of these tiles belong to which of the services that we activated. So for example, the inbox and monitor workflows, it's related to the workflow service. Then these purple ones are related to process flexibility in workflow management. So the live process content, basically. Process visibility, the green ones, and then the golden one, it's for the business rule service. So we have entry points into all of these different services from this Fiori Launchpad, which is quite nice because then we have more or less one single point of entry here, and we can go into all these different services. Let's have a look at it. So I will do it like that. I go to my instances and subscriptions, and in the subscriptions, we have the workflow management and the business application studio. And here for workflow management, I will just click on this button, go to application here. So this should open a new tab. And now I need to log in with a user. Again, that depends on what you have as a user or identity provider configured within your account. So I cannot go into detail about identity providers and stuff like that. That's again specific for business technology platform in general. But yeah, if you have a trial account, you don't need to take care of it because authentication is taken care of. If you have an enterprise account, you might have also administrators who take care of these things. So I will log in with my Schofeld user and password. You don't need to know that. And then we have the workflow management Fiori Launchpad. Now, I will not go into all of these tiles here. I've shown many of them in my other session. We just want to find out how to get started. And now, as an end user, we would go here into the inbox, find our tasks, for example. Or as an administrator, we would go into the monitor workflows and find out about workflow definitions that are already deployed in our account. So here you see we have 4 workflow definitions for different kinds of workflows that could be started within our account. Or we could find workflow instances and see what is currently running here in this account. These are the actual workflows currently happening. Just so you have seen this workflow management Fiori Launchpad as one entry point. But now for us, here in this session, we are a bit more interested in how to get our own workflow project started. So that's why we'll go into the Business Application Studio now. And that looks like this in the beginning. I will show it to you. There's the create dev space. We'll come to that. And yeah, here in this section, set up your project in Business Application Studio. So what do we actually need to do? So when you're the first time in Business Application Studio, you will need to click this button, create dev space. And by that, you create your own development environment within the Business Application Studio, where you can develop your own applications. And then you have to take some settings here for your dev space in order to be able to use the workflow management. So I will just do this now. And these are also steps you need to do when you use the trial account, for example. So let's go back here. And now for the Business Application Studio, click on Go to Application here. And now you see the entry page for the Business Application Studio. In this case, there is already one dev space, but I will just create another dev space. I think, again, here, if you have a trial account, this is limited to 1 or maximum 2 dev spaces. But for many things, this should be definitely enough, I would say. So let's create a new one because this one, it's already there and we want to see how it works. So when we say create dev space, we have to give a name. There's a name, I will just use this one, my workflow space. And then here we choose SAP Fiori because workflow, we might even create Fiori UIs, and we need the tools for that. So that is the template we choose, but you see there are also other templates for other scenarios. In this one, a lot of tools, as you can see here on the right-hand side, are already included in the development environment. A lot of tools that are required for UI5 and Fiori development. And then there are additional SAP extensions that you can activate manually here. And for workflow management, we have to choose this one. So this is what we need: SAP Fiori, all the predefined stuff, and the workflow management extension. Say create dev space. And now you see it's popping up next to my already existing dev space, and it's in mode starting. You have to imagine these dev spaces, they are like like virtual machines that are then created particularly for our request here to be able to develop something. And each dev space, it's a separate environment separated from the other dev spaces. So that's a good thing here. So you could have completely different projects in different dev spaces. This might take a while. Yeah, just about this, you can see if you have a dev space that is in status stop, you could click on the play button here to get it started. If you don't need it anymore, you could delete it. And you could also click this download button to receive all of the content that was created within a dev space. Yeah, let's go into this one, the newly created one. So you will see this Business Application Studio. To some of you, it might seem familiar depending on what development environments you have worked with. So it seems sorry, I just read the chat. I will come to that question later. So this development environment, it seems very similar to others, for example, the Microsoft Visual Studio Code. And that is because it's based on the same open source IDE development environment, and that's the Thea Eclipse. Is it Eclipse? I think it's Eclipse Foundation Thea IDE who developed this and open sourced it. And then there are different open source, different development environments that are based on this open source environment. So what can we do? We would have to start our new project. So start from template. Let me quickly go back to the slides to show you what we have. So I did this, create. Then it was starting up this new dev space. And once it was started, I clicked on it to enter the dev space. Now we have two different possibilities how to move forward when we want to create a project. So there are UI-based generators that use certain templates to create a project. And there are CLI, so command line-based generators. And I will just show both of them for our workflow project. So we need to create a basic multi-target application. And then inside of that, we need a workflow module. Yeah, we see it here. Start from template for this UI-based generator. Choose the basic multi-target application. And afterwards, we can use the CLI-based generator to create a workflow module. We can also create the basic multi-target application, as you can see here from the CLI. I just want to show that there's different possibilities to do this. And then we will get a dialog here in the CLI with information that we have to add. Let's just do this. So at first, create the project from template. And click on basic multi-target application. So the abbreviation for multi-target application is MTA. You can see it here. And it's used for many projects at SAP that are deployed into the cloud platform. Okay. Start. We need a project name. You see I've done this before, so I will just use the same names. My WF project, and then let's say finish. And then it might take a while until everything is initialized. And now you see something changed on the left-hand side. So this is your Project Explorer, and here we find my WF project, and it's already open for us. You could also open other workspaces, then you would need to say open workspace here. And if you had other projects within your projects folder here, you could switch between these workspaces. But now we have only this project here. And then, as you saw, we want to use this CLI-based generator using the terminal. So I just click on terminal on top and say new terminal here. And then I have the command line interface here within this container where our application studio is running. So you can use some standard Linux or Unix commands like ls and cd to navigate here in the terminal. And then there are some certain commands included, like the command for creating modules, and that's here the YO. And the YO is an abbreviation for Yeoman, because actually these are so-called Yeoman generators, YEOMAN. And that's a concept that is also used at other places in the Business Application Studio, or you would also find them in Visual Studio Code, for example, if you want to create projects from templates. So here you see we can choose different sorts of generators, and we want to use the workflow module generator. So I just choose this with the arrow down and up keys, press return, and then it asks me for a module name. Let's just call it workflow. Then it asks for the actual name of the workflow that I want to create from the template. Let's call it our new workflow. And then we need the description. Demo workflow for Learning Hub live session. Something like that. Some of the stuff you can also change afterwards. Then it asks us override mta.yaml because there's a conflict. Just choose Y for yes here. That's okay. And then you see, okay, it's generating something. On the left-hand side, now we have this workflow module here. So this was the name we gave, workflow. Then here is the workflow folder, and that includes a new file called our new workflow, which we gave here in the generator. And now you see already the workflow editor is open, ready to use in this case. So now actually our project, our workflow project is already set up. So there's the most of the important stuff is already done, but for sure now you actually want to develop your own workflow. So there's still a lot of work to do. But from the setting up perspective, the most important stuff has happened. There's one thing that we need to take care of here, and that's the mta.yaml. We just confirmed something here and something was overwritten, but we should have a quick look at it. Because this file, it's a descriptor file which describes what sort of contents are deployed or created when you want to build and deploy this project. So currently this project, it only exists in the development environment, and there's no real workflow yet that can be executed. So we are just in the developing phase. But once you want to deploy it, this file comes into the equation. And here we need to take care that, that these required services that are written down here and the resource, that they actually fit to what we have in our account. So here you see a resource is required with the name workflow_MTA, and this should be of the service workflow and service plan standard. Actually, this means this would create a new service instance, but we already have a service instance, but it's called differently, the service instances that we have. So we should take care that the name that is given here is the same as the service instance that we already have. So when we check the account, you see here, this is the workflow service, and our service instance name is WM_workflow. So actually, I should use this name within the MTA file. So let's just change it here. WM workflow, and also here. Okay. And we could even say here, it's not a managed, but it's existing already. So we don't need to take care of it when we are deploying, because we know it does already exist. So that's fine then here. Let's quickly go back to the slides just to see. So I've shown this to you. We have our basic workflow in the editor already. And we just did this one here. We changed the name in the mta.yaml to fit the service instance name in our service instances in the account. So that was for setting up our first workflow project with the most important stuff. And now we want to go and actually build and deploy our first workflow to be able to use it. So there's a few things to be done. So we have the build phase and the deploy phase. Building means we take this descriptor file, and this describes how this project is built into the so-called MTA archive. And then afterwards, this MTA archive, it needs to be deployed in our Cloud Foundry account and space. Yeah, let's do that. But in our case here, this workflow, it doesn't have much substance. So actually, there's nothing happening in the workflow. So maybe let's just at least add something so we would actually see something. What can we do? So currently we are in the editor here, and we have the general workflow properties. Let me just click on the start event, and then in the details tab, we can configure a so-called sample context. That's information that is required within the workflow. And you can just create a file here and give it some name, my context, for example, create. And that's by default a JSON file, which contains some data. that the workflow should use. And you see the JSON by default, it has already some data in there, but we might not want to use this data, or we might want to have other information required for our workflow. So I could just add attributes here, for example. Let's do that. My custom field, I call it. And let's give it a value, hello world, for example. So now we have additional data in our workflow context. Save it, and this data can just be used by default when we start a workflow instance of our definition. Now, for example, you could use this data within your workflow for the subject of your workflow. So currently it's just our new workflow, but I could also say this is the, and then I can insert data from the context, from the workflow context. And you do it via this kind of expression. This is the $, then these brackets, and then you can use the context and reference any field within the context. And we just saw I created a new field, and I call it my custom field. And I can just insert it within the text. So this is a placeholder for this variable. And then whatever value is within this variable, my custom field will be replaced in the subject of the workflow later on. So here, my custom field, hello world. Let's add also at least one user task so we could see something. Call it our demo user task. For user tasks, you would need at least someone who receives them and a subject. User task in, and also here I can again use these context information. My custom field workflow, like this. And we need someone who is a recipient. So I could just hard code my user here, or I could also do something like do a replacement here like this. And then there's some workflow information like started by, which could be used. So then the user who started the workflow would also be the recipient of this user task in this case. So we have a recipient, we have a subject, we need a user face for this user task, otherwise nothing can be displayed. And you see we can use SAP UI5 components, but we would have to develop them. So that's quite a lot of work, but there are these so-called workflow forms and they are easy to use. So I will just create a new file here. Demo form revision 1.0. I do it really quickly because that's a lot of stuff now, but just so you can see, we can actually use the workflow afterwards. And then within this form editor, we can create such a form, which will then translate into UI afterwards. We always need a section, and the section needs an ID and a title, our section. And within a section, we can add fields, which will show data. ID field, our custom field is the label, which will display in the task. It should be of type string. And again, we can give a path to the context for information that should be displayed here in this case. So again, let's just do this context dot my custom field. So this context information should be displayed. It's editable. And then you have these so-called decisions that can be taken in the task, and they will appear as buttons. So let's create one decision. Text confirm data. Type, it can be positive, negative, or neutral. Okay. So this was really quick, but just to be able to show something. So now we have this task here, and now we come to the actual important thing to get this workflow running. We need to build it and we need to deploy it. So how to build it? There's two options. You can go on View, find command, and then look for build MTA command and just execute it. Or you can do a right mouse click on the mta.yaml file and have the context menu and say build MTA from here. And then you see in the command line something will happen, and usually it should be able to build unless there's any issue with the syntax. And you will see here now an MTA archive appears containing the archive of our project. And this one now, it can be deployed to our platform account. So I can again do a right click here and say deploy MTA archive, or I can use the command and search for deploy MTA archive. Let's just execute it from here. Now, you would need to target a specific account where you want to deploy this workflow. We don't have to deploy it into our CLD 500 account or in your trial account. It could also be deployed to another account. So we would have to give the information which Cloud Foundry endpoint to use for that account. We would have to give the user which will be used for deploying. So that is my user here. I need to enter a password. For the account user. And then I get to choose between organizations where I have access to as a developer. So in our case, we want to use the first one. This one points at the CLD 500 account. And you also see here trial. So I actually have a trial account that I could also use to deploy this. And then the space is the dev space because I don't have another space in that sub account. And then it will start deploying the workflow. So you see it down here in the command line or in the terminal. Stuff is happening and it's trying to deploy this one. It will find out that the content module is not there yet, but there is a service key for the service already that can be used. And then here it's saying process finished. And let's hope that now it's available within the account. So we would go back to the Fiori Launchpad. We're not signed in anymore. Okay. Quickly need to get the password. Second. Okay. Okay, so we are in the Fiori Launchpad, and if the deployment worked, then we should be able to find the new workflow here in the monitoring tools workflow definitions. Let's have a look. And we see here our new workflow. It's there with the ID our new workflow version 1, because it's the first time we deployed it. And now we could start it from here. So we could say start new instance. And then when we started from here, you see, oh, okay, the information that is given here, that actually is the information that we defined in the initial context. So here you see this custom field, hello world. I will just leave the text as it is, but I could also enter something else. So I could also say hello live session participants to all of you. So let's say start new instance and close. So this means the workflow instance is started. If a workflow instance is started, we should also find it here when we click on show instances. And you actually see, okay, now we have this title of the workflow using the parameter from the context. So this is the hello live session participants workflow. So this actually worked. You see here started by Schofeld. You would find the context information and you would see, okay, there's a user task with the recipient Schofeld. So I could have a look now if the task is there in my inbox. And yes, you see here one in my inbox. Our new task is there. Also here the replacement worked. And you see we have the section with our custom field. And here you see the data that we entered. And I could change this now to hello world again. Click on confirm data action. And then it should be finished. So let's check again workflow instances. Now we don't see it anymore because the filter, it only shows instances in status running, suspended, and erroneous, but not completed. So let's also show completed instances and hopefully see, okay, our workflow instance is completed. Now, the interesting thing is, because of our task, I changed the data from hello live session participants into hello world. Also in the context information, this data has changed after the task. So you see how you could change data and then use that changed data in next steps within a workflow. Okay, yeah, so this was a go through everything that you need to deploy your first workflow and how to set up the project. So let's have a look at the slides. I think some of the stuff that I showed to you, we also have in the slides here. Yeah, we saw this, how to find the deployed workflows and how to start them using the start new instance. Yeah, then just one small topic. I don't want to go into too much detail here about setting up a live process, because in this case, we don't use the Business Application Studio to develop our own process, but we want to use a pre-configured or predefined process template. So we would use the process flexibility cockpit and go via discover packages here. And then when you discover packages, you find a certain package and you would find out what you need to do to do the setup here. So let's have a quick look also for this one. As I said, not too much detail in this case. Discover packages. We see the process hub and could find all packages that we can import into our account. And then if you find a package that you're interested in, like for example, the capital expenditure approval process, you click on it and then you find, okay, there are several guides, documents here on how to get this started. So actually, it's not just one click and then you start, but there's, depending on the scenario, there's different things you need to do. So you would click into the setup guide. I have already opened it, so let me just show you. You should now see the setup guide. And that's just a document containing a lot of information on what you need to do. So the services that are required, and that might include also other services that you haven't used before, like here, for example, the document management service, which destinations you would need, So here are some additional destinations that maybe you haven't used before, so you would have to configure them. And then it would also explain what you need to deploy and stuff like that. So in this case, because this is a bit more complex, they have included a GitHub repository which contains additional content for start UIs and stuff like that. So here there's actually a few steps to be done. It's not that easy, but then there might be other processes where you just click on import and then there's not much more that you need to do. So I have just listed everything in my presentation, what you need to do in this specific case. So you need all of these services listed here. So additional to the ones that we needed before, you need the document management service, HANA Cloud, eventually the identity authentication service. You would need to create again service instances for the services. You would need to create a document management repository. You would need to deploy a visibility action workflow module of this project. So that one is used if you want to have within the process visibility certain actions depending on the workflow status. Fiori Launchpad. So here we get a separate Fiori Launchpad that includes also other application tiles and custom UIs. So that's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. I will just quickly show you how the result looks like. So there's then a new Fiori Launchpad, which can be used for this particular process in that case. So I have a bookmark for that one. And you see here there are some tiles included which are just the same as in the other one, but then there are some custom tiles, like here the CapEx for capital expenditure business app. And this one you would then use to actually start the process once you have activated it. And then there are also some different tiles for managing of information required for this process. But this is just to show you, okay, there's not just the side I develop my own workflow, but also the side I import existing or prepackaged workflow content. And in that case, I might need to set up some additional stuff just in order to make it work. Okay, you saw that. So I'm almost at the end of the official part of the session. So there's just some links for useful resources to get started. So we have several tutorial groups to get started, including the trial account setup. So that's this one here. Then tutorial group to create first on workflow plus Fiori Launchpad site. That's also quite interesting. Then there's an OpenSAP course that's actually about the whole cloud platform extension suite. So workflow management, that's only a part of this course, but I think it's good to see it also to maybe understand a little bit of the other capabilities that we have there. Yeah, it's still called here Cloud Platform Extension Suite, but it also holds true for the business technology platform. And then last but not least, the new instructor-led training. As I told you before, course code CLD 500, but this will come soon. I would guess around 4 weeks maybe from now, and then the dates should be available that can be booked. So that's a 3-day classroom training where you would do a lot of stuff, a lot of exercises, and a lot of hands-on as well. Let me just click on the tutorial here to show you what it looks like. So here you see set up workflow management in Cloud Cockpit. The first part is trial account setup and then using the booster. And then you would also configure these services, and you would import a pre-configured scenario in this case. I will put this link also in the chat. And when you're on developers sap.com, there's this tutorial navigator, and you can also find you can also find a lot of other tutorials from here actually. So just for you to to get started. Okay, yeah, and then the Outlook, it's the same what I also showed yesterday. I won't go into detail here. Just for you, if you're interested, you could go to roadmaps.sap.com. Okay, sorry. I just read that not everyone is getting the links. We can clarify this afterwards. So about the roadmaps, yeah, just have a look at it, and you will also see some upcoming features for workflow management that are planned but not yet available. And also here, again, for this CLD 500 course, on the training.sap.com webpage, you would already find the entry and also the content of the training. So let me just click on it. So we have the agenda there and what will be part of this training content. So here it's a lot of stuff, but we don't have the dates yet, as told before. But soon there will also be course dates to be able to book it. Okay. So first of all, at this point, thank you very much for joining, for your interest, and I really hope that you could gain some new information, some new insights, and can also hopefully use it to get started with your workflow projects. And we still have some questions open, so we can come to them. Great. Okay, that's it from my side. So thank you very much, and maybe see you again in some other session or in a training. Bye-bye.